back. In the United States, there's a new buzzword going around, which is the weaponization of justice. And it ties into the idea of whether we're living under politicized justice, whether there's a two-tiered legal system where you're prosecuted or let off the hook based on which side of the political aisle you fall on. Now, is that really the case? And if so, what's really behind it? Well, here to speak with us about this is writer and filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza. He has a new movie out called Police State that talks about this. Hey Dinesh, great having you on.
Josh, always a pleasure.
So Dinesh, you have this new film out, Police State, and you're talking about how police state tactics are being used in America. You know, for a lot of people, they can kind of see it, but they might have a hard time believing. I mean, is it actually that bad? What did you find?
Well, you know, a defining characteristic of America for centuries has been this idea of innocence. Huckleberry Finn, a sort of sense of wonder that at the world and a sense of shock that bad things could be going on. And I think Americans are a lot that way. There's been no real experience of a police state in this country, at least not for the mainstream of Americans. So Americans think of police states as being defined by sort of the Stalin overcoat, the Hitler mustache, or the Maoist cultural revolution. And yet we are seeing a police state emerging in this country that has American accents, if you will, and comes very buttoned up and, in fact, is marching behind the banners of saving democracy and upholding the rule of law and fighting for truth against misinformation and disinformation. So the job of a film is to strip away this kind of facade, this veneer, this rhetorical flim-flam, and really show the naked brutality of the police state. A police state that doesn't just affect Trump or even January 6 defendants, but affects and imperils ordinary citizens. There are a lot of ordinary guys in this movie just going about their life, and then boom, they come face to face with the police state, and it's an encounter that you don't forget.
Well, explain that to me a bit, because, usually when we talk about government overreach, like, of course, January 6th and the way that people are being treated, the solitary confinement and so on, that tends to be the image of it. But people argue, oh, it's just the January 6th guys. You're saying it's not just them?
Right. I'm saying that by and large, once you get in the crosshairs of the government for whatever reason, they can find something to get you for. So let's say, for example, you're a pro-life activist, but you're a decent guy. Basically, you think abortion is a horrible thing. I got to go stand outside these clinics, and I'm going to try to talk women out of it. And so what happens is someone from the clinic comes out and engages you in a scuffle. And the moment you touch them, they say, oh, you're now interfering with the provision of reproductive health services. And then 3 months later, the FBI is at your door. You're charged with violating the FACE Act, which is an act that basically says you cannot disrupt the provision of reproductive services. Now, you weren't doing that. You weren't trying to do that. But you've been lured into this situation where you're facing years and years in prison. So this is what I'm talking about. I tell people sometimes, you may think you're clean cut, you pay your taxes. You talk to me about your life for 10 minutes, and I will tell you 3 federal indictments that can be brought against you that will generally put your life in danger and destroy your family.
Yeah, well, I mean, that kind of comes to the definition of what is a police state. Because, conservatives right now, they talk about weaponization of the justice system. There are Democrats who for a long time talked about the militarization of the police. And I used to only hear police state talked about by people on the left. How would you define what a police state is?
A good way to do that, I think, is to look at police states around the world. Look at North Korea, look at China, Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, the old Soviet Union, and ask what are the characteristics that these police states have in common. They have mass surveillance of citizens. They have systematic censorship. They have widespread indoctrination in the schools and also in the media, a lot of propaganda. They also have, they're one-party states. Doesn't mean they don't have elections. China has elections. Iran has elections. But they don't allow an effective opposition. And if an effective opposition leader emerges, they want to shut him down, lock him up, do whatever you can. Police states also tend to undermine religious liberty. They have political prisoners. The list could go on, but just go down this checklist I just gave and ask yourself, is it not a fact that all these elements are now, to one degree or another, present in the United States? And that's why I don't say we're a full-fledged police state. In a full-fledged police state, I couldn't make a movie called Police State. We are on our way to becoming a police state.
You mentioned there's kind of an American flavor, like a unique American identity to the way the system's kind of taking place here. How would you define how the American system of it is different from like China or North Korea or something like that?
Well, first of all, in a full-fledged police state like North Korea, for example, or the old Soviet Union, you don't have to give people a reason. Stalin just shows up, or his apparatchiks show up, they grab you at the train station, come with us, no reason given or necessary, you're just on a list, too bad. The American police state can't really do that, and in part because it's not a full-fledged police state. And so it needs a lot of subterfuge, a lot of deception. So think of a guy like Fauci. You know, when COVID comes out, Fauci goes, whoa, I've been funding this gain-of-function research in collaboration with Wuhan. What if people start blaming me for all this? So I need to basically show that the virus came out of a wet market. But Fauci's not Stalin. He can't just say, I'm going to say it came out of a wet market, and if you say otherwise, I'm going to send goons to beat you up. So he has to do a lot of falsification. Let me find some world-class virologists who happen to be on the government payroll. I'll, quote, commission a study. I'll tell them, you know, if you say this, basically, your grants are going to continue. They're going to, quote, change their mind very conveniently, produce the requisite study. Fauci sees it in advance, but then he has a press conference. You know, I've just come across a study from some world-class virologist revealing nothing about his involvement in the study. So this is what I'm talking about. It's a kind of a big thespian stage routine that the American police state puts on. And of course, what makes it so chilling is the media. Many of those guys actually know that this is all fakery, but they play along with it. They play their part in the pageant. They act like courtiers at the French court. Their job is to bow, genuflect, cheer, and they do all those things willingly. So our police state is very creepy because it stretches also into the private sector. It involves academia, involves the media, the digital platforms. I mean, all those three institutions are involved, for example, in censorship. So this movie, I think, is very important in that it exposes the kind of the architecture, the peculiar workings, the sausage-making machine of our police state.
Well, folks, this is it for YouTube. For the rest of the episode, come join us on Epoch TV. We have a great discussion about his new film called Police State, and we're going to go into a lot of what we're hearing about, let's say, weaponization of justice, two-tiered legal systems. Is it really just about J6? Is it about the other topics we can't even talk about on YouTube without having them censor us? And why do they censor us, for that matter? It's going to be a great discussion. Don't miss it. And again, that's on Epoch TV, EPOCHTV.com. Come and join us for that, and I'll see you there.